Good morning and welcome to Demystifying Digital series webinar. Today we'll be talking about cloud technologies. And the interesting thing about cloud is that we as users of IT technologies sometimes very more advanced than our companies in using cloud services, because when we store in our photos from our iPhones on Apple iCloud, or we're using Gmail, we are using cloud technologies. And there is a reason for that, because large multinationals and tech giants, they are way more advanced and faster in adopting cloud technologies. And the cloud still is not that common among small and medium enterprises. And this is one of the reasons why we would like to have this discussion today. So my name is Alexander Radchenko. I'm Chief Executive Officer of Rodeni AG, a Switzerland-based consultancy firm. And we are the founder of Demystifying Digital series because being in IT for decades, we do believe that part of our job as an IT expert is to educate a wider community of business and operational professionals in modern technologies, and as we call it, demystify the digital transformation. And our speaker today is Vladimir Lebedev, Chief Executive Officer and founder of a Ukraine-based consultancy firm called Triangu. And cloud enablement and the cloud migration and supporting cloud infrastructure and SaaS applications are among key expertise and the focus of Triangu as the company. So we are delighted to have Vladimir today as our keynote speaker, as he's a very hands-on person and has many years of experience working with small enterprises, with startups, and up to huge multinationals in helping them with their building the proper cloud strategy and implementation of this strategy.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Alex, for kind words for this kind of introduction. First of all, I would like to say that this presentation is not going to be very technical. I would like to cover kind of basic facts about cloud. What is cloud? What are the factors that are kind of enabling cloud adoption these days? We would go through a set of case studies, and specifically, I would touch very important topic on how kind of service providers or companies like mine one help adopt cloud and navigate customers through cloud journey. Because from what I have seen, cloud is not that easy and not that straightforward to adopt. And having someone who has been there is really strengthening kind of, the learning curve. Some facts about me. I'm MA in applied mathematics, so I have technical background, and as Alexander stated, I'm still hands-on. I have a dozen of years in different IT roles, from software developer to a director of offshore development centers. And since 2015, I'm CEO and founder of Triangu. So it's a consultancy, and we specialize in cloud adoption, cloud migrations, and everything that is linked to the modern fancy word DevOps. So why cloud and why now? There are a set of business drivers that affect the decision on whether to go into cloud for different companies. And on the slide, you see the full kind of the full picture, and you see that there are different drivers. Some of them may be relevant to your business, some of them maybe not. But it is very good to have this kind of broad picture to understand and assess those drivers to your own business. So cost reduction. Everyone is really very concerned about costs these days, right? Especially when it comes to IT costs, because they can grow tremendously due to going online, due to this kind of remote work during this COVID times, let's say. And when it comes to cost reduction towards cloud, there are some specific figures that I would like to highlight. So IDC projects that cloud reduction due to the reduction in operation costs can be up to 51%. And the TCO, total cost of ownership of the whole IT infrastructure within the business, can be lowered to 31% within a 5-year term. I would say that these figures should be treated very carefully. You need to be ready to transform your business into cloud, and you need to use a lot of effective, I would say, a lot of effective techniques in order to achieve those goals, those figures. So this cost reduction does not come automatically by switching to cloud. So cloud should only be treated as a sort of enabler for these figures.
So talking about the cost reduction and one of the traditional, or maybe originally the major driver for companies to migrate to a cloud infrastructure, are there any practical scenarios when cloud is not the optimal solution cost-wise, and the organization, they should stay on premises with their system and data?
What we see these days is companies are not really adopting cloud at 100%. What we see these days is that customers are adopting so-called hybrid approach, where some of the IT payloads, some of the applications stay within customer premises. So your data center is still present and you still rely on it. But some new applications, some new payloads, they can benefit from going into cloud, and new projects that you start can be cloud native, and that's where you achieve TCO savings. That's where those numbers that I presented earlier come from. Yeah, so going 100% cloud just right away may not work for everyone. Yeah, so but still, where this cost reduction is coming from? This slide describes kind of different factors that costs, like that TCO is organized from, right? So when it comes to cloud, you still need to take care of administration, app subscription renewals. So this is your part, your piece. But when it comes to governance, you rely on your cloud provider. And as you can see from the slide, governance and the underlying kind of part of the iceberg when it comes for on-premises version is really huge. So when you're doing on-premises, when you're kind of taking care of your IT infrastructure within your own data center, you need to pay and you need to take care of software, hardware upgrades. You need to implement security and privacy. You need to implement and strictly follow change management process. You need to cover maintenance and performance optimization processes. And this all takes time, money, and labor. And this is what you can offload by going to cloud. So another factor, another kind of driver that drives cloud adoption is agility and staff productivity. So you can see that cloud or agility drives faster time to market, higher application revenue per user if you're let's say a SaaS provider, and you can have more features and fixes per release if you are developing your own applications. Do you think that your own IT staff, your own IT department, can invest the same amount of knowledge, energy, and resources to build the same infrastructure as, let's say, Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure? Of course not. When you're moving towards cloud, you automatically benefit from the knowledge and from the techniques that big guys like Microsoft, Amazon, or Google have developed throughout years of their existence. And you take it automatically. You don't pay for it. You just kind of rely on the underlying hardware and software that they have built in order to provide the service to you.
For many organizations, security of their corporate data, it's one of the traditional showstoppers. At least when they start analyzing that, they say, look, I do have on-premises hardware, and I have my people, and they have all the cables, and we know where to plug the cable. So we feel more safe with having our data in the same building with us. At the same time, historically, the adoption of the cloud technologies by governments, for example, it was slower, specifically on the European continent, compared to the United States, for example, because they also had this in mind. Okay, how can we take our data, in most of the cases pretty sensitive data, and give it to someone we don't know? Yes, we do have contractual relationship, but not more than this. So for the average company, if you like, what will it take from a company to ensure security of corporate data in a public cloud, for example? So is it something that your cloud provider will be taken care of, and you as a company, the owner of this data and the user of this data, you have to put less efforts in ensuring security and proper managing access rights to this data? Or is something that becomes more complicated for you as the owner of the data when you're moving this data to cloud?
Cloud provider, when you're choosing cloud provider platform, let's say, you would receive a set of kind of guidelines or a set of best practices that cloud provider has developed over years of kind of their operations. And specifically for the security and for the kind of resilience parts, these are, I would say, very, very strict rules or recommendations. And I have seen kind of customers, or I have seen IT infrastructure on-premises part that has not been followed through, that has not been kind of applying those rules or those guidelines. So by going into cloud, I would say you are going to review your own policies, you are going to review your own rules and strengthen those stuff. Because what is very important when you're dealing with security is reviewing and auditing your IT infrastructure throughout certain kind of cycles, right? And that's what enterprises are not really doing, because what we used to is install something and then don't look at it and just continue doing your daily exercises, your daily business. But when it comes to security, you need to reiterate, you need to check, you need to stress, you need to test. And that's what cloud providers do. So they embed this into their offering. That's how it simplifies adopting new security standards, new security rules for you.
So if we summarize a little bit, probably advanced cloud providers, they are more prepared to handle typical security issues, and they enforcing, or at least they are providing policies and techniques and tools for that. And as a side effect of your migration from in-house to cloud, is just a trigger or a good opportunity to have a new, fresh look at like what kind of policies do we have, and are they right, or shall we upgrade something?
Exactly, exactly. What I always say to my customers is that treat cloud migration project as an opportunity to improve, is an opportunity to upgrade, is an opportunity to fix something that hasn't been fixed throughout years, let's say. Hardware, software, end of life. This is also kind of connected with security. I mean, software. There are some certain cycles within kind of software software life cycles, right? And you need to constantly monitor versions. You need to constantly upgrade something. You need to decommission something. You need to kind of look for various problems or potential problems within your IT assets. And when it comes to cloud, a lot of this stuff is offloaded to cloud provider. Like if we are talking about cloud native applications, you can build an application on cloud without really relying on or without dealing with any specific software or version of software. You would rely on the services provided by public cloud provider, let's say, and it would be up to public cloud provider to implement those services. So you would not deal with database versions. You would not deal with software with application with operating system patches. You would not deal with upgrades of network switches firmware. You would not deal with all those kind of Microsoft or Oracle or this type of software licenses. You would just take database as a service, network as a service, and application as a service, let's say, or kind of microservice as a service, and just use it. Enterprise has kind of has suffered from a list of problems, and and cloud was considered as the best, let's say, solution to overcome those problems. So software incompatibility between all the new technologies, local IT issues in office, security of data transmission. And the solution was to get rid of old physical servers, because those were one of the primary reasons of incompatibilities, and move payloads to secure cloud hosting provider. The results, it was, we achieved better physical security, complete network and server redundancy. Like we do not rely on old hardware technologies that some of them were decommissioned by the time we started the project, and we've got significant cost reduction. Maintenance department freed up resources. IT maintenance department freed up resources, and they have increased the level of end user support. So they started to provide much better service to their end users, and stop doing some kind of some unneeded routines. By going into classical, let's say, way, enterprise that has spun off had to start and build their own IT infrastructure, and that was, it was really time-consuming, resource-consuming, and they decided to check whether there are alternatives to this. And yeah, cloud was really an alternative, because at the time of spun off, new business did not really have much IT assets, and they decided to use cloud from scratch, let's say, and started to build their processes there, started to develop their services there. And that's one of the kind of examples of cloud native, let's say, cloud adoption. So some of the data from parent business was moved into cloud, and then enterprise level data protection encryption was enabled in order to keep this data safe. The results, this new business has automatically gained HIPAA compliance. It was a medical startup spun off from big kind of medical enterprise, and then they started to quickly develop their own service. They introduced all the fancy DevOps practices that lead to quick deployment and low Apex. Kind of standard way of dealing with IT infrastructure is to invest. Like you need to do a lot of capital expenditures or to procure hardware, to procure licenses, to build your IT team, employ people, and to train them. And then you need to repeat those exercises because hardware and software has some specific end of life, terms, and you need to buy new stuff. You need to kind of decommission old one. Switching to Opex model is very important. Opex is operational expenditures, so you don't need to invest something upfront. You just pay as you go. Let's say you apply pay as you go principle that we are used to, right? We do pay as you go within kind of different services that we use in our daily life, and we get used to it. So the same principle applies to your kind of enterprise planning within IT, let's say, department. If you need some certain resources, IT resources now, you pay for them. If you don't need them tomorrow, you don't pay for them. So this is really a game changer, let's say. So this enterprise decided to apply this principle, and they switched to cloud. And their IT assets were migrated from their old, let's say, data center to cloud. And during this migration, they understood that they can remove some of the payloads that were not used. So that's what I say, that every migration project is an ability to rethink, rebuild, re-architect. The results, they gained 40 to 50% cost saving by going into Opex model. They improved scalability. Like they do not need to plan hardware procurements upfront for 1 year, for 2 years upfront. They can ask their cloud provider to provide additional network capacity, additional CPU capacity, or additional memory capacity, let's say, and they get it immediately. And they got data backups automatically. Cloud can simplify some certifications, but on the other side, you need to understand some pitfalls, or you need to understand how going into cloud affects your existing certifications or your future requirements. So in Europe, I would say we have the most stringent data protection requirements, because I would say every country has imposed their own specific requirements around how data can be handled in public clouds or handled at all, and GDPR, of course. In USA, let's say, we have pretty relaxed, not regulations, but relaxed handling of clouds. Because, well, I would say that cloud business or cloud technology was invented more or less there. So public cloud providers have put tremendous effort into lobbying their their business within government, within public sector. And I would say that USA is the example of a country where cloud is officially not supported, but officially treated as an area where highly sensitive data can be kept, up to data of FBI, let's say, or some kind of Department of Defense agencies, which illustrates that public cloud should not be something that you need to be afraid of. A bit of summary, challenges and pitfalls. So you need to carefully choose, let's say, your cloud provider, because that would affect your future, let's say, your future growth and your future ability to use and rely on services and certifications of that provider. There are certain blockers within your organization. There would be certain blockers within your organization that would delay your cloud journey. You need to implement some project management, let's say, approach in order to effectively move into cloud. And sometimes you need to reassess your organizational structure, your processes, on how would they be working in cloud enabled world, let's say. Now I would like to to go through kind of some steps of how our customers, and I would say that's these typical scenarios, adapt cloud, right? So some practical stuff, not just, educational stuff that we have covered before. So first of all, I need to define a strategy, cloud adoption strategy, as they say. So how are you going to do it? And there are certain scenarios or certain models, and depending on your type of on your existing IT infrastructure, you need to choose. So you can do lift and shift kind of transition. So just turn cloud on and turn your existing payloads off. May not be easy, but some customers can do it. Sometimes you need to re-architecture and refactor your applications. Yes, it's time consuming, but still it would lead to some cloud enabled applications. Sometimes you need to kind of stop developing your own application in non-cloud way and start do it cloud native. So I would say it's one of the most complex scenario, and but still this is something that big enterprises need to deal with, because they have lots of legacy stuff. They're still relying on some legacy frameworks, on legacy, I would say, legacy software that is not available to cloud. So they need to kind of rebuild from scratch some of their components, or reconsider the whole approach. So sometimes going into cloud is really time to look at your business, look at your application from different angle. When it comes to selecting a strategy, you need to make decision between different types of, I would say, cloud. So this is linked to a question that Alexander has asked in the very beginning, like whether going all in into cloud is a good thing, or whether this is something that we need to consider. Not really. So there are three types, let's say, of cloud infrastructure. So it is infrastructure as a service. So we just move our existing server, let's say, or kind of hardware into cloud, and not really kind of touching anything that was run on it. So it is one of the options. Then it's platform as a service approach. When we are relying on some services that are provided, let's say, by cloud provider, and we re-architect our application in a way that it benefits from those, let's say, cloud native services. And then it's SaaS. I would say that's where we are rebuilding our application almost completely, so that we do not implement some of the functionality on our side, but just use already existing stuff. So our application is looking like a set of kind of bricks that are linked together, and majority of those bricks is something that we do not really own. We just use them. Assess your existing environment and choose what are workloads, what are applications or services that are easier to migrate and that are not really dependent from your existing, let's say, physical infrastructure. What I want to mention is that sometimes you need to leave some of the stuff where it lies right away, right now, right? No need to move everything. You need to be practical here and see what is easier to start from, so that people would see the benefits of cloud-enabled stuff, and this would help you to move everything else. So still use your private cloud for sensitive data. You might consider leaving some data or some specific kind of assets within your own perimeter. Legacy stuff, do not start from it. Start with something that can be easy to move. Migration time, I mean, approximately 12% of IT leaders mentioned poor employee training as the greatest difficulty they faced during their cloud migration. This is kind of classical thing. You need to take into account people resiliency to changes. You need to invest into the kind of in the educational aspects. But this is something that is forgotten. And within cloud adoption, what we have seen is that this is really crucial stuff. Measure migration success from day one. Well, this is classical stuff. This is not something relevant just to cloud. This is kind of common sense for every project. And future plans. Also pretty much common sense, but still when it comes to cloud, you'd better think about kind of step-by-step approach from the very beginning. Cloud is not a project where you just stop at the end and just start using cloud and say, okay, I'm in the cloud now, that's good. It's just the beginning. You need to start benefiting from being in the cloud. You need to reconsider some of your business processes. You need to think how you can better serve your end customers by relying on this on the services or on the kind of applications that your cloud provider is providing. So we implement DevOps. It's a fancy word, but basically it means a set of practices that IT departments are using in order to shorten delivery cycle, application delivery cycles. So this allows you to quicker implement new features in your services, to provide more value and faster adapt to, let's say, to different kind of market conditions. We look at automation and help customer to achieve better, let's say, automation and integration metrics. We are reviewing disaster recovery policies. We do managed services. We provide cloud-native development services, application hosting monitoring. The second case is a SaaS startup. So it's a software as a service startup. So it's a company that it is not a startup anymore, but at the time we started with them, they were a startup. And they, I would say, had classical set of problems because they were developing applications too fast and their user base was growing too fast, and they had problems with system stability. So their service was going down pretty often. They started to think about disaster recovery planning because their investors were kind of asking, are you prepared to different types of scenarios? They wanted to minimize errors within the application releases. Like, every change you do, there is a risk of breaking something that has been working before. And when you have, users relying on that functionality, that lead to lots of issues. So they wanted to implement some kind of quality assurance automation. Yeah, and classical set of solutions that we have provided. Migration into microservices. This enabled us to monitor specific services more thoroughly and pinpoint issues, not with application as the whole, but pinpoint issues, performance issues or stability issues towards specific microservice. We implemented CICD, continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. It's a technique within DevOps, let's say, methodic. AWS was still used there, so we used VPNs and secured connectivity within different regions where application was deployed. And yeah, we used infrastructure as a service migration model to simplify, let's say, migration process. Results: CICD was implemented, so we improved development processes. And this lead to, I would say, smaller amount of mistakes, smaller amount of issues. Automated quality assurance led to smaller amount of regressions as well. And yeah, we we provided the ability to deploy releases from once per day to a few times per hour. And how enterprises can benefit. Like, okay, we have helped small customers, like startups. We have helped SMBs, but what about big guys? Like, they should have enough resources on their own to go into cloud, right? But sometimes it's not that easy even for big guys with big IT departments. That's because that is because of, let's say, communication and educational kind of aspects. So what we do for enterprises is starting from kind of trainings, from some showcases, from proof of concepts, from MVPs. So this leads to them understanding how their existing payloads can look like in cloud. So they can try, they can test, they can kind of feel it, and this helps management to promote, cloud within big enterprises. So one of our customer required some help with managing costs and risks. So it is not a technical thing, right? But still, they asked set of kind of questions or put out some targets on how, going into cloud would affect risk management on their side. How team performance, what tools can they use more effectively in order to kind of increase team performance. So our answer was to use a set of Atlassian tools like Jira, Confluence, whatever, setting up knowledge base that helped to train their personnel, their IT staff, and some integrations with a set of tools. The results, well, we implemented collaborative incident and problem management platform for them. It was not really cloud specific, but still, by relying on cloud, we implemented this much faster than they would have implemented it by kind of, building this on their own kind of IT infrastructure.
So the cloud outsourcing redefines your relationships, your approach to manage the performance of your team, and most importantly, your providers. So how do you see the management of the provider? Your operational stability is now depending on it.
Yes, I mean, by going into cloud, you increase dependency on your vendor, on the cloud provider, and depending on the maturity of your cloud provider, you would have different approach. When it comes to big guys like Amazon Web Services or Azure, they monitor their infrastructure and they disclose all the figures related to it. So you see when their infrastructure goes down, and then they provide some sort of rebates, they provide some guarantees, or some financial aspects are covered when it comes to the infrastructure they own. So also you have ability to select from different, I would say, from different options within those cloud providers. So you can when it comes to Amazon, let's say every service is provided with 2 or 3 different SLAs, and you can choose like what kind of guarantee do you want, and you can afford, let's say. So I would say that's, well, not the answer, but this is something that that you can use to, let's say, monitor your cloud provider or kind of set some specific metrics or goals for them to comply.
As far as I understand, any contract with any of the major cloud providers, it's always service level agreement based. So you have a certain commitment, and usually, I would say, and that's what we know from the experience of our clients, they stick to this commitment pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, problem happens everywhere, but SLA really provides you a way to service level agreement, yes, approach, provide you a way to have some guarantees around that. If something happens, you're not left alone, and you can kind of offload some of the payments that you might be required to do towards your end customers to your vendor.
What would you recommend? Build internal expertise on cloud or use external consulting? And this is a fair and relevant question, and we've been asked this question in relation to literally each and every modern technology, for example, for cybersecurity, because there are not many people on the labor market, especially good people, and sometimes it's simply hard to build or scale your internal cloud capability. I mean, engineering, support, and all kind of things. At the same time, most of the organizations they're reluctant to delegate or outsource some of the functions related to access to critical data, for example. So what's your view on that?
Well, as I said, cloud is not really a project that you need to implement and just go on, right? So cloud is really a journey, and that's why I'm pretty skeptical that this type of stuff can be really outsourced. What you need, I think, to do is rely on some provider, like consultancy provider, to train your employees, to do migrations, to do some proof of studies, to do some specific kind of onboarding. But still, you need to invest into your own IT organization so that they understand cloud, so that they kind of treat it as an effective way of doing things. Because what we have seen, right, with some customers, we come, we do some migration project, we leave, and then stuff that we have built is not really used effectively, and their IT teams are constantly trying to get back to using their existing assets, data centers. So, and then cloud is considered as something that is not working. As every kind of consultancy, we don't want our projects to be kind of considered as failed, and so we always try to educate people, and that's how you should kind of use cloud consultancy, guys. You don't need to rely on them on 100%. Still build knowledge within your own organization, and yeah, that's my approach. I think that's.
So you would recommend a hybrid approach, if you like. So you learn from your vendor, but and you rely on them in many ways. First of all, in terms of scalability of this cloud resources, but at the same time, you have to have a certain critical mass of understanding and knowledge in your own organization.
Yes, that would allow you, if you have this critical mass within your organization, that would allow you to use cloud and cloud surrounded stuff more effectively. You would have this cloud enabled mindset within your own organization. But consultants can be used to jumpstart this. Consultants can be used to to simplify adoption curve, to make it happen, let's say, because what we have seen, the other aspect of trying to do, let's say, everything on your own, this may not work because we have people who are used to do some stuff in old way, and change is hard when it comes from kind of internal.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I also think that another important aspect here is that if you have your own expertise on cloud, it's normally helping your organization to go through this adoption cycle easier, because you do have someone inside of your organization who is integrated and can navigate the organization much easier than your external partners, and explain and support and help your people, departments, and system and data to be properly adopting the cloud approach and the applications.
Yeah, we call those guys cloud champions.